internist and HIV specialist, Dr. Jorge Rodriguez, along with one of the stars of HBO's Looking, Daniel Franzese. We've been talking about PrEP, which is essentially prophylaxis for HIV in those who are at high risk. And Daniel, one of the things you said is whatever it takes, and one of the things that doctors always have to balance out is cost, benefit, risk, reward. And so I could, every single person in this audience, I could put on 10 different medications. Some may need it more than others. You gotta, for every patient, you gotta decide, and I'm sure you do this in your clinic.
We do.
So I think where the interesting point becomes when someone comes into you, what is your litmus test for, this is worth the risk, the cost, the benefit is greater than those things, because it's not as simple as it's not as simple as putting everyone on this, and that would be a shame. So how do you?
Is a great point. That's what I think Hollywood needs to listen up and do. Because in the mid '90s, before in the '90s and in the mid '80s, everyone was watching these shows, a very special episode of Designing Women or what have you, where they would. It was all over the place. It was a hot button topic. But since it has fallen out of the zeitgeist, since we explored other issues like alternative families and now there's a huge movement to see trans people in our stories. Since that happened, the numbers of new infections have plateaued. We were seeing a decline in infections every year as they were seeing characters on television that were showing this kind of story. And now that, up until How to Get Away with Murder, I was the only HIV positive character on scripted television for years.
Yeah.
And when I heard that was shocking to me.
Sure, and the big difference is times changed once they got under control in the gay community, and it became a kind of, HIV, the face of HIV these days is African Americans. Once it changed, it just wasn't a hot topic anymore. So I'm glad that HIV in the media is making a resurgence, because it still continues to be a problem.
To answer your question, Travis, if someone comes into my office and they request it, then there's a reason for that, so we talk about it. If they have a history of having multiple sexually transmitted diseases, well, then they're not using protection, so there's already that history, and we discuss it. We tell them, we see these patients every 3 months, because we have to check their kidney function, we check their HIV test. They don't get refills past 3 months. Because if you're not taking it correctly and you become HIV positive, then it's even more dangerous, because you could be breeding a type of virus that is actually resistant to this medication.
Your litmus test is, to some extent, when it comes to risk reward, really is individual. And I think that's, that's the important point here, is a lot of times in medicine we'll find some new treatment and we think it's the holy grail. And the truth is, for some people it is, but there's always going to be instances where, this is right for you, but it's not right for you, and the concern, again, becomes a scenario where I know it's a big one for you, which is just, let's just put everyone on this medicine.
People cannot think that they can get PrEP and just go out and have sex with whoever and be unprotected and reckless. So as long as there's that educational component there
has to be,
and that there's lifestyle behaviors that are changing around it, I think that we can do something. But I don't know that all of us want to be on.
And I'm not saying everybody needs to be on it. This is an extra added tool, extra added safety net that works for a lot of people.
I think that's really well put. And the thing that you said that we've discussed many times on the show, which is a problem with the younger generation, Jorge, you were there at the front lines.
Yeah.
The younger generation is not as afraid of HIV
as
the older generation. And so that's where you mentioned it, and it's so important that everyone remembers. HIV is a potentially deadly illness. It is something that has, in many ways, the younger generation thinks of it as, oh yeah, it's not that big of a deal. It is a big deal. So if you do think you're high risk, this is a tool in the arsenal. Talk to your physician about it. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Rodriguez. Always a pleasure.